Hi, this is Everetts Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. And I'm here in Chesapeake, Virginia, and I'm broadcasting to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Twitch. All those 5 channels are out there. I hope you're tuning in, and I'd like to hear some comments, and give me a like, and subscribe to my channel. I'd like to hear you come aboard. Gloria's in the studio with me today.
Hello.
She's monitoring the messages and also keeping track of all the activities going on here. So today I'm going to talk to you about a very important thing. Let me look. I'm looking here for something here really special. I don't see it. Okay, gotta turn it on. Okay. Okay, I'm going to be talking about the color green today. And green sometimes, to a lot of artists, a lot of beginners especially, green can be a real challenging color to use. And Holbein has 18 green colors in the inventory, and those are on my website, everettswatercolors.com. And I'm going to use 3 of the colors today. But more importantly, we can mix green also with other colors. So I'm going to use green out of the palette, out of the tube, and I'm also going to mix green colors today. So let me go over to my painting table and let me get started. Let's see, I want to turn it off. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to turn our chats on, and yeah, the chat room is open, so drop me a line and let me tell you how you're doing. Okay, well, today I've got a lot of things to go over, but what's really exciting today is I've got a project here that I've kind of started here thinking about. Looking at the color green, and then I started thinking about what could I do to make it a little bit different. And what I decided was that the painting I'm going to do today is going to be a narrative painting. Now, what I mean is I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to tell a story about the time that I lived on the farm. I lived on a farm for a long time, always through high school. I lived on a farm. And a lot of experiences there. But I'm going to take you back to a place where I grew up. And I don't have any pictures. No, I don't have any photographs. So I'm just using my memory. So I'm going to recall the information that I'm going to paint, and kind of talk about it. And it's what I'm going to call it a narrative painting. And I'm going to do it in watercolor. And I'm going to use a lot of greens, and I think you'll understand the reason why. Look at the color wheel. The green is the secondary color. It's a mixture of blue and yellow. In between blue and yellow is green, and that's where the green is. But you can also have a yellow green. If you mix green with yellow, you get a yellow green. And if you mix green with blue, you'll get a blue green. So you have all kinds of types of greens you can mix between yellow and blue. We're going to play around with a little bit those today. Now, as I always do before I do a painting, I always do a color study, and I've got a layout here of the colors I'm going to be using. And let me open my palette. And the first color I'm going to have is green number 1, which is down here in my palette, right here at this point. And the second one will be green number 2. Oh, it's a little glare from the light. Green number 2, which is the second green color on my palette. And then Hooker's green, which is my darkest green over here on the right. So I have a light, medium, and dark green on my palette, which is a tube color. Also, I'm going to use the primary color, Ultramarine Blue, and Alizarin Crimson, which is my red that I'm going to use today, and Yellow Lemon. So that's the primaries. I'm using red, yellow, and blue on my palette. I'm also going to have a little bit of yellow ochre, which is here in the left corner, and a little bit of burnt sienna. Now you can see here from my color chart here that I've got the blue and green mixing to give me the greens, okay? So those are colors I'm going to be using today. Put that aside. So I took these colors up. I took green number 1, for example. Here's my chart. Here's my color chart. Green number 1 up here on the left, and I mixed it with just water. You can see how light it is. In the second step, I mixed yellow with it. It gives me a yellow green. Then I mixed blue with it. Gives me a blue green. And I mixed red with it. It gives me kind of a brownish color. These are gray, red and green. And that's important. Let me just go back to the color wheel. In the color wheel, the green, the opposite color, is red. That's a complementary color, red. So the important thing about complementary colors is that they have a tendency to desaturate the color. And we'll go over that a little bit more in my painting when I go through that. Okay, the second color is green number 2. I did the same thing. I added water, yellow, blue, and red. And you can see green 2 is a little bit darker. When you put the blue to it, it gets a real dark green. Hooker's green is a little bit darker green. It doesn't show much difference here when you add water to it. And it doesn't show much difference here when you add yellow to it. And you can darken that down by adding blue to it, get a dark green. And of course, when you add red to it, you get a very dark color. Now down here, I played with some of my combinations I'm going to be using in the painting. Green number 1 and yellow. Of course, I'll get the yellow-green mixture here with the green 1 and yellow. A green 2 and blue will give me a nice dark blue, which I'll need in the painting. And then I put Hooker's green and blue together also. Either one of these will give me a dark green. Then I tried the mixture of Hooker's green with blue, and then I added red to it. And you can see the combination here that it gets a dark green, and then when I add the red to it, I get a very dark color. Very dark, almost a black. Turns into a gray. Then I took the primary colors, the red, yellow, and blue, the yellow lemon, the ultramarine blue, and the Alizarin Crimson. And you can see here, when you add those together, you get a gray. This is the gray color I'm talking about down here at the bottom. So when you add the complementary of green, this is Hooker's green here, and add the complement, which is Alizarin Crimson, you're going to get a gray. Now that's important when we're mixing colors, because when we get a green and we want to desaturate a little bit, and I'll talk about that in a minute when I start painting, we use the complement. Okay, here's my sketch for today. I've got some trees in here. This particular tree here this is a poplar tree. And on the farm, we had this poplar trees. We had a whole string of them along the side of the entrance road here. Here's the entrance road that went into the farm. Over here was a whole bank of poplar trees. So I wanted to paint those today because I lived with poplar trees for many, many years. And I could see them through the springtime and all the way through the wintertime. And over here is 2 cedar trees. They were in the front yard. And they're very important also. And I'll get to that when I get to painting. I'll tell you about these 2 cedar trees. Here in the background, next to the back of that farmhouse, is an oak tree. And of course, there's many trees in the background. So this is the farm view from the road. This is Shore Drive, and looking from the roadway into the farm, this is the view that I had. And the view I'm taking, I'm a little bit almost a bird's eye view. I'm not down on level ground. I'm a little bit. I raised my viewpoint a little bit higher, so I can get a little more depth into the painting. And also the way I painted this, this is also a narration, so it doesn't have to look exactly like a landscape. Although I'm going to use a lot of landscape terms here, but I want to tell a story, and I want to show the story parts. So this is the farm view from my memory. That's really what this is all about. The view of the farm from my memory. Okay, then I went and transferred that drawing, that sketch here, to a quarter sheet of watercolor paper. This is Gemini 140 pound. 100% cotton. It's a quarter sheet, which measures 15 inches long and about 11 inches wide. And I have this watercolor paper also on my website, everettswatercolors.com. And all the paintings and supplies today that I demonstrate will be also on my website. The brushes I'm going to use today, these are quill brushes. And what I've been doing is I've been experimenting with these because they really they hold a lot of paint, a lot of water, and I can do a lot of things with them. So I'm going to try these. I'm using these today in the painting. These are two quill brushes. This is a large quill brush, and this is a little medium size. This happens to be a number 10 this is a silver brush. This happens to be a number, it doesn't have a number, yeah, number 8. This is another brand over here. But I call this a large and a medium, large and medium sized quill. These are natural hair. And also I'm going to be using the number 8 round from Silver Brush, which is the black velvet, one of my favorite brushes. So I'm using the small round number 8, black velvet, and I've got the 2 quill brushes. I may pour another brush here or there if I need it, but these are going to be the main brushes I'll use today. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to start out with is I'm going to start out with the round brush, and I'm going to start here in the background, a little bit right here, kind of in the middle ground. And I'm going to mix up a little bit of lemon yellow. And there's a little building back here. And this building has a lot of memories to me. I think it was a tool shed. It was a partial tool shed. It was a partial garage, storage shed. It kind of had it was a multitasking building is what it was, a small building. But when I was growing up here on the farm, this was my gym. This little building here, I spent many hours out here. I made my own exercise equipment, benches, weights, and so forth in there, and built myself an exercise area inside this barn, inside this little building. So I have a lot of memories for this. So there's a lot of farm tools in here for the farm, and also it had my gymnasium, my inside gymnasium with benches and weights and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to paint that one yellow, lemon yellow, just to give it a nice color. So that's going to be my focal point here with a nice color. And I think also I'm going to pick up a little bit of red here. But I'm going to start off here also. Back here in the background, this is the old barn. And on the farm, we had a couple horses, a lot of chickens and so forth. But this is where the barn was that we had our livestock. And I used to ride the horses at least once or twice a day, go out and saddle up the horse and go for a ride. So a lot of memories here. This old barn, and it had a nice big hay loft where me and my 2 brothers. I grew up with 2 brothers. We go up there and play in the hay loft, and jump out of the hay loft onto a pile of hay on the ground and so forth. So it was a lot of memories go with this old barn. So I'm going to put a little bit of red back in here. Use a little bit of red on the side there. There's also another little building over here, and I'm going to paint this in red also. So I'm putting up nice bright colors here for the things that really bounced out to my memory. This is an old chicken coop, and we raise chickens for the farm, also to eat. But this little chicken coop was back here behind this, what I'm calling a yellow garage. And we had a lot of chickens, ate a lot of eggs, ate a lot of chicken on the farm. And I still eat a lot of eggs today. It's one of my favorite meals. So this is where the chicken coop was. I'm going to leave this here, let that dry a little bit. Now the other building, of course, on the farm was the farmhouse. And I'm going to put a little red here. This is going to put the foundation right here, a little bit of red. So I put a little red here. This will give me a little chance to tell the story. I'm putting the foundation here. Now, this foundation was not, we didn't have a crawl space. We had a cellar. Now, all of you that don't know what a cellar is, it's where we stored our food for the winter. We put our, but this is a farm. We raised a lot of vegetables. And what we do to take the extra vegetables, the corn and the beans and the potatoes, and they would all go into the cellar, and we would eat off that all winter long into the cellar. So and this was a 3-story building. You can see the 3 windows I have here. The first floor, the second floor, and the third floor. Now, myself and my 2 brothers, we had a bedroom up here on the 3rd floor. We were the youngest, so we had to go the furthest up and down the stairs. So this is the 3rd floor, 2nd floor, and then the 1st floor. And then we had a cellar underneath the 1st floor. So really, there were four levels to that building. It was a big house, a big house. Okay, I think the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put a little bit of green. Now, I put the red there because, remember I mentioned at the very beginning that red and green are complementary colors. So I wanted to have green in the painting. That's about the only reds I'm going to have. The rest of the painting is going to be a lot of greens. Now, over here, these poplar trees, I'm going to start out with, before I get too mixed up here, I got a little bit of burnt sienna moved into my green number 1. So let me get that out of the way. It's not a bad idea, but I didn't want to get it off the spout. So I'm going to take this quill brush. I'm going to load it up with green number 1. And we'll go over here, and I can get a lot going on here. This is why this quill brush is so nice. I'm going to start out with a little bit of green number 1 over here, just to get a base coat down. Okay, now this old row of poplar trees is just brings a lot of memories back. Not much you can do with a poplar tree to look at, but what it did, it bordered the whole left side of the farmland here with this row here of poplar trees. Now, next door to me was a good friend of ours. Used to play. He was a young man from Philadelphia, but he would come down in the summertime. So we'd have a playmate next door, and we played games together and things like that. But this row of trees here divided the property between the 2 farms. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of green number 2, just to put a little darker color, a little brighter color in there, a little darker color. I'm going to separate, get another tree going here. So I'm going to keep the edge of the tree showing. Go back to green number 1. So in the summertime, these poplar trees would have a lot of green leaves on them, and they were real tall. If you've ever seen the poplar trees, they grow very, very. I call them skinny. They're very skinny tree, but they grow very, very tall. Tall, almost as tall as the farmhouse, just about. So you can imagine if the farmhouse was 3 stories high, that these poplars were almost as high as the building. And that's how I could almost, as I was doing this drawing, I was trying to visualize that these poplar trees were about the same height as the building. So I could use the top of the building and say, okay, that's about where the top of the trees would be. So that's kind of a measurement I had about how high to go, to give me a little bit of sizing of how high I would make these trees compared to the other trees. Okay, now I gotta go back and work on those trees. I just put the oak tree here. I'm gonna put a little bit of green number 2 in here. This old oak tree had a lot of shade to it, so I mean it was right in the backyard, right behind the house, just before we got to the barn. There was this great big old oak tree here. And there was a lot of shade under there. That's where the cars were parked and so forth. Parked the cars next to the oak tree. And let's see. Next thing I think I'll do, there's a lawn here. I'm going to put this lawn in. There's a great big lawn right here in front of my gym. I'll call it my gym. So what I'm going to do here is take a little bit of green number 1, and I'm going to mix in a little bit of yellow lemon because I want it to be a lighter green. So I mix a little bit of yellow in with that green. I get a yellow lemon. And I'm going to go in here and put that color right in here. So that color is part of the grass. This was a great big yard here. It was a big yard on the other side of the building too, but this was one of the favorite yards we had. This is where we used to play. And believe it or not, of course, in high school or getting close to high school, I was in a lot of sports and football and baseball and basketball, so that this became a real place to work out and throwing balls and running and so forth like that. So this lawn, there was a big lawn next door past these trees here on the left. These poplar trees. There was another big field over there. So on a farm, there was all kinds of room. I got so I missed the idea of the space because there was so much room on the farm. It never bored of going somewhere. I'll go into some more stories about that later. So now as I come forward, I'm going to get a little bit darker. And what I want to do though is I want to take a little bit more of that yellow. So what I'm doing, I'm going to take down some of this green. The way you paint with green is you mix other colors with it, because the green out of the tube is pretty I would say pure. I would say it's saturated. So when the color is saturated out of the tube or out of the palette, it doesn't look real because it's a tube color. So you have to really do some engineering with it. And as far as painting, you add more color to it. You add another color, like here I'm adding a little bit of yellow, and I can go down in here and add a little bit of blue to it to make it darker here in the foreground. I'm really telling the story though that I'm doing. It makes me go back, and I had to go back to my memories because I don't have photographs of this building. I've been there. I've been there since then, but the photographs just aren't there. And I think we've all often thought about, which sometimes you can get pictures on the internet of different locations. But these, once you have something like this that's part of your memory from a long time ago, they're just, if you don't have photographs, you just have to rely on your memory. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of this burnt sienna, and I'm going to go over here and put it in these trees. So there's little trunks down here. I'm going to put a trunk. I'm going to put some, and what I mentioned before, complementary colors. When I add a complementary color, in this case, burnt sienna has red in it. So burnt sienna goes very nicely with green. So that a good complement color will make the green stand out better. So burnt sienna into the green. I can even put some. I even put the green and mix a little bit of burnt sienna in with the green. So the green number 1 with a little bit of burnt sienna. I'm going to put that in here. So I'm going to darken these. I'm going to darken these leaves up a little bit, but I mixed a little bit of burnt sienna in with that green number 1. And what that'll do is that will neutralize a little bit of that green, because I'd rather have more of a greenish, brownish look. So I put a little bit of burnt sienna in with that green mixture. And what that does, the complement, which is the burnt sienna, which has a little red to it, it will neutralize that green color. You can still see the green, but it's not as poignant, not as strong. So mix a little bit of brown in with that green. It helps out a little bit there. Okay. Now I'm going to put. You can also see what I've made here. When I made the poplar trees, I made a large one in the front and one in the back. It also helps in the depth perception on this. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to color in the roadway here. It was a dirt road. It wasn't paved or anything. This was a sand and gravel. So I'm going to use a little bit of yellow ochre and just put that right in. See why I like this quill brush? I can put that in very quickly. And put a little bit of burnt sienna in there just to give it a little more earth tone, a little extra, a little darker here forward. And I'm going to take this dirt, and this was we didn't have a paved road here, so this was all dirt. So we'll put a little bit of dirt back here behind behind the lawn. And it was even the dirt continued on back here into the background, into the pastures. Put that on back here. Okay, now the building, the house itself, the farmhouse was an off color, was a white building, but it was an off white. It wasn't really pure white. It was like an off white. So I'm just going to mix a little bit of blue, a little bit of ultramarine, and just have a little bit of green in the brush. It doesn't matter. It's just going to be a light color. It's going to be an off-white color. So I load my brush with that color, and then I just spread that out, and I can add water to it to lighten it up a little bit. But all I do is just put a little bit of color on this building, just to give it a little bit of identity, and a little bit of variation, a little bit of blue, a little bit of green, but very light. When this dries out, it'll be you'll hardly notice the difference in the colors at all. It'll be a very pale color. And that's what it was. It was an off-white color. As I recall, it was not white, but it was like a creamy, not a yellow, but a creamy color. So I'm going to leave it like that. Just a light color there for the farmhouse. And then back here for the barns, I'm going to put a little more. I think what I'll do, I think I'm going to dry this up with my hair dryer. Because some of that paint's still wet, so I'm going to dry it off. Okay, it's still a little wet, but I'll be careful as I go around. I'll use this ultramarine blue, and I'm going to put a dark roof on this workout area. I call it my gym. It was really a storage building, but I had my gym in here, so this is really my memory shows me this is where my gym was. I spent a lot of time in here. After going to school, coming back home, I'd go to the gym before dinner and get a little workout. And after my chores on the farm, I'd come back and do another workout. So I was in there continuously. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix that little bit of burnt sienna in with that. That's burnt sienna with ultramarine blue. Make a little bit of gray. And I'll put a gray roof on the barn. A little grayish brown. Grayish brown. There were shingles up there. Just standard old shingles on top of the barn. And I'm going to put a little dark roof on this chicken coop back here. The chicken coop, remember I told you about that? Where all the chickens were? The hens and the roosters. Yep. And I'm going to put some windows in here. Just a little chicken coop with some windows for the chickens to look out. Let's see. Over here on the farmhouse, all I'm going to do is just put a little bit of shading into the windows, just a little bit. Just to show a little window up here in the top, one in the middle, and a bigger window down maybe at the bottom, just to show those glass or something there. Okay. Then on the rooftop, I'm going to put a little red mixed in, maybe red mixed in with the blue, kind of change the color a little bit. So it'll be a little purple, more red on the top, red tile. We give it a purplish color. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to put in some more trees in the background. Now, in the background, there's background trees. Behind the barn was a farm. We had vegetables back there, and then behind that was just open fields and places where you could go. And I used to go back there. I call it the back 40, and I'd go back there and spend hours back there. The woods, a lot of woods. We build the tree houses, and we go back there and play cowboys and Indians and all kinds of stuff. So it was a fun place. So I'm mixing the blue in with I got green number 2 mixed in with ultramarine blue. So as I go further back now as far as the landscape is concerned, as you go further back into landscape, you introduce a little more blue into the greenery to make it go back. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just adding a little bit of blue to the green color, green number 2. And I'm putting this distant tree line. And remember, this is a farmland. It was this land here was fairly flat, so there weren't any hills. Well, it was a slight hill, but when we say hills, we mean when you talk about hills, we usually mean a bigger slope. But there was a small little slope here that was good for running up and driving a tractor up and so forth. I drove a tractor. I drove a tractor and a truck before I was 12 years old. And that's what you do on a farm. When you're working on a farm, everybody pitches in. And I got a chance to use all the equipment. I drove all the vehicles when I was much younger. And that's an opportunity you have on the farm. No place else. It's a good way to grow. A wonderful way to grow up on a farm. It makes you appreciate the nature. It makes you appreciate the way things grow, how important the environment is, and how important land and important vegetables and how to make food. So a lot of lessons are learned on a farm. It's a lot of hard work. Not going to say that. Can't say it's easy. especially around harvest time when you have to go out and pick all the crops and then get them back into the barn. And during the summertime, we had a stand out in the front of the house, and we would sell vegetables on the vegetable stand. So we had a lot of experience along those lines. It was a lot of fun growing up there, and a lot of memories. Now here I'm going to put in some yellow ochre to just show there was some fields back there between the rows of trees. And I'm going to put some more yellow ochre here behind the barn. So these were fields. We had vegetables. I'm not going to put the vegetables in there, but these were cultivated fields where they were plowed, and we cultivated the vegetables, corn and beans. And potatoes and tomatoes. Oh, tomatoes! I had a tomato patch. You couldn't believe it. It was probably an acre by itself. Just tomatoes everywhere. You go out there in the tomato patch with a shaker of salt, and you could sit there and just have tomatoes and sprinkle some salt on. Have a good time. One thing about the farm, you never go hungry. There was always plenty of food. And we shared a lot of it with our neighbors too. A lot of neighbors would come over and on the farm, and we would share our vegetables and so forth with the neighbors around us. There's a couple stories about the watermelon patch next door, but that's not part of the painting here. So, but there's a couple stories about the watercolor patch. We didn't grow watermelons, but the neighbor next door did. So it became a very nice place to go. You can imagine a fresh watermelon out in the field. Nothing like it. I go to the store now and buy vegetables, and I say, not the way I used to see it. But you buy what you buy in the stores, what's available. But I know when you grow them on the farm, it's a lot better. Okay. Now, one of the stories I want to talk about here is this. There's a couple trees here in the foreground, and these are cedar trees, large cedar trees. I mean, if you know what a cedar tree is, I mean, this is a big one, two of them, and we had one on the other side of the farmhouse. There was four of them, two on this side and two on the other side. Four great big cedar trees, and they were about half as tall as the poplar trees, but they were big, huge. And what we used to do when I said we played in this yard here, we played football here and in the yard, and baseball and other kind of actually baseball across the other side of the poplar. The field was a little bit bigger for baseball, but here was a good football field. And these two trees here, these two cedar trees, became our goalpost, so that when you ran for a touchdown, you went for the cedar trees. So that was our fun time. We played football in the yard here, and these two cedar trees were the goalposts. So that brings back lots of memories. Playing with my two brothers, and we'd have neighborhood kids come over, and we'd play football, or we play soccer, whatever ball was available. There was always some kind of ball game to play. So these two cedar trees, and I think the last time I was there, which is quite a while ago, but I did go by this farmhouse, and it was never looked the same. It never looks the same. It never does. I don't care what you do. When you live somewhere and you go back and visit it, everything changes. It's never the same. And either we change as we go along, and it seems different, but I think different people lived there and they made different changes to the property, so it just made a big difference. Now I'm making put a little bit of blue into this green. I'm adding blue to this green number 2, and I'm using a little bit of Hooker's green too. So I'm not trying to make these realistic. These are just, I'm having fun with the color green. You can see I made green trees, the poplar greens, the cedar tree greens. I put the oak tree greens, the green trees in the background, the green lawn. So I'm using greens all over the place, and I'm just having fun with the colors. I'm not really trying to make them look like they really are. I'm just fantasizing, and I'm just narrating, remembering what it looked like when I was growing up. This is still a little bit wet, and let me see if I can dry it a little bit more. Okay. All right, I'm going to go back in. I'll fill in some of the spots here, some of the white spots. So I'm just going to go in with the Hooker green. We'll mix in a little bit of blue. It'll be a dark. Remember, these are dark cedar trees, so the green is going to be very dark. And they'll overlap the green grass, the little lawn here a little bit, for overlap a little bit of the roadway. Yeah, these weren't Christmas trees. These were just really big old cedar trees. I mean, the kind you find out in the woods, and they've been growing there for a long time, and they bring back a lot of memories. Playing football in the yard and running through the goalpost. That was a lot of fun. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead now and kind of I'm going to fill in a couple blank spots over here. I think I'll take a little bit of. Now I'm going to mix a little bit of burnt sienna in with the green. That'll give me a kind of a greenish gray, and that's fine. Now I'm going to put in some of the ground in here. So put in some ground. Well, I'm knocking down some of the white spaces, and I'll leave some white showing, but I want to knock down some of the white areas here. So these are all grass and leaves that had fallen off the trees and so forth. So it was kind of like a rough textury area on that side. And there was some ground over here. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think the only detail I'm going to put here is on the building. Go back to the gym now, and I'm going to put I'm just going to add just a little touch here. This doorway here, I'm going to make this one dark. This is an open door. Oh, it was always open. This is the door I went in. This is where my gym was, right here. So this door was open. I could walk into that area space, and there was no door there. It was an open bay. You can think of a garage with an open door, with no door. That's open bay. Over here on this side, it was two swinging doors. That's kind of where the shop was. It had tools and saws and things like that to be used on a farm. So this side over here was more like workbenches and tools and so forth. And there were a couple windows in here. And there was some windows in the back also. So it had lots of lighting. There's a window here on the side. So I didn't need any lights inside. I mean, if I worked out during, which I did, worked out during the day, there were plenty of light. You never had to worry about it. And up here in the hayloft, I'm going to put a little shadow because, again, that was no doorway on that. That was always open too. So the hayloft was open. And there was also a fence around the barn. I'm going to put the fence posts in here. And that's where we could put the horses out there and let them run around. They had a watering trough, and we'd go back there and feed them, and make sure they had plenty of water and so forth. Okay, I'm not going to put much more detail. I guess only one other thing here. I'm going to put a trunk here on the oak tree. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to put in is the bottom here and the top. So, very, very simple. We're going to make a little bit of dirt here with burnt sienna and yellow ochre. And we'll put a little bit of dirt. There's a little bit of dirt along the edge of the road in front of the house. This is the what do we call the edge of the road? The shoulder. This is the shoulder of the road. This is Shore Drive running along here. Shore Drive. It was a main highway. And that's where the people would stop by our vegetable stand and buy vegetables in the summertime. So this was Shore Drive, which went from here all the way to the ocean. This farm, we were about 10 miles from the ocean. So I had a farm life, and I also had a seashore life. I could go to the ocean anytime I wanted to. So, and in the back 40 there, the water was right there. We could go back there, and we had a couple boats back there, and I could go rowing a boat back in the background in the water. My grandfather was living with us, and he used to catch muskrats and so forth out there in the sounds. Just go hunting for birds and animals back there in the woods. I didn't do any hunting. I didn't do anything of that. But I'd go back and watch them. I'd go back and find them, and locate them. I love to observe animals. My big philosophy has always been be one with nature, because that's the way it should be. Okay, that's the old Shore Drive. That's kind of the shoulder of the road and into the farm. And I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to put a little bit of sky in. Turn it around upside down. And I'm going to mix a little bit of blue. We'll have a blue sky. No, nothing real fancy. Just to add a little topping to the painting here. So mix up a little bit of blue, real light. And you can see how these quill brushes can really cover a lot of territory. I mean, I fill this thing up with a brush load, and then I can just go through and do the whole painting with almost a brush. Now here I'm controlling the value by adding a little bit of water to that mix. So I'm upside down, which is okay. Just adding a little bit of sky in here, a little bit of blue to show sky. And we'll bring that around and see what it looks like. Okay. Yeah, the blue I have on my palette today is Ultramarine Blue. And I've been using that in a lot of my paintings lately because it's a primary color, very close to primary color. And it mixes with a lot of, as you saw today, it mixes with green very nicely. It also mixes with burnt sienna to give me a gray. So there's lots of, I think what I'll do here now, I can take this brush. Now I just took the water out of it, and I can take it and I can pick up a little bit of color here at the bottom. So what I'm doing is I'm lifting a little bit of the blue sky color to make it a little bit lighter at the bottom. Okay. All right. Well, this is not what I would call a finished painting, but it's something that, as far as a narrative painting, or to give you some ideas of how to use greens, but also a storytelling of what the painting means to me, and what the elements are here. And if I was going to make a painting out of this, I would probably do it a different type of. I'll make it into a landscape that would show a different viewpoint, and do some other things with it. But this was more of a narrative type exercise. I wanted to paint something of my memory. I wanted to paint something of things that meant a lot to me in the past, and I wanted to use the color green in order to represent that. So let's go to my main table. Yeah. Let's see. I'll come back to the main table, get the main camera on, and let me put my colors on it too. Okay, I'm back to the main camera. Wow, it's amazing what your memory can give to you, and I think it's a good exercise as an artist, is to find an area or find a place that looks like something you've been before and paint that. But also, it'd be interesting to try to remember something that's important or something you've done in the past and paint that. And I did this painting today, or I did this exercise today, without any painting, without a picture or any diagram at all. It was all from my memory, from things I remembered I did. There were many other things that would happen on the farm, but those were just some of the key things that I wanted to bring up today, and also give me the opportunity to use color green. And you can see all the green colors here on the left here of the Holbein colors that I used. I didn't use all those colors, but I used 3 of those. And but there are 18 different colors of green available on my website with Holbein Watercolors. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation today. The presentation was learn how to use green and paint green. And believe me, if I was to paint that painting as a landscape, it would be a lot different. But I wanted to do it as a storytelling exercise, and then use the opportunity to use the green colors also to point up. So that was the real purpose of the painting. So I'm going to be back again next week on Thursday. So I'll see you.
2 o'clock.
It'll be at 2 o'clock. Today was 3 o'clock because of a special appointment I had. So next week, 2 o'clock on Thursday. I'll see you on Thursday, 2 o'clock.